The time by Sagicor Bank is
7 o'clock, and it's time for the morning watch.
Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Toussaint. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org, and if you're overseas and on the move, US listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you're in the UK, 0330-332-6541. Or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube Live. In the first watch today, what's with the rain? In the second watch, the inevitability and ethics of becoming superhuman. For our social media question, we ask, how likely is it that you would allow a chip to be implanted in your body? Please share your responses on our Love 101 FM Facebook page and YouTube channel, and also on WhatsApp 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your responses later on in the program, but before all of that, here's our quote.
You never really learn much from hearing yourself speak. That one there from George Clooney.
Good morning, Deidre. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Dr. Toussaint. I'm fine, thank you.
Yes, I see that you have been with the Morning Watch team over the past 3 days.
Yes, I quite enjoy your company.
And we do too.
Wonderful.
Enjoy yours. Right. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. I kind of missed the quotes from with the patwa though.
Well, I guess the producer will look into that. All right.
All right. Thanks, Kathy.
The first watch will be back after this break.
Gas Pro. That's the only number you need to know. 8884 Gas Pro. Safety first, that's for sure. We feel it right. So when you're ready to light, day or night, the blue flame burns bright. So anytime you need cooking gas, call Gas Pro and you get it fast. 8884 Gas Pro. Get attached to the one you know. Gas Pro, gas professionals.
Rise with the sun and face the day with some Lasco instant chocolate. Pull a pack, stir it up. Hot or cold, enjoy the chocolatey goodness any time of the day and unleash instant smiles, instant happiness.
He knows my name.
Here is your opportunity to connect with someone who will listen, pray, and give guidance. It's the telephone counseling ministry of the Edgewater Baptist Church. Please call 876-220-6474. Weekdays between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. and Sundays between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Please talk to someone if you're finding it particularly challenging to cope during this period of global crisis. Someone is waiting for your call. Please reach out today. 876-220-6474. It's the telephone counseling ministry of the Edgewater Baptist Church.
This is a reminder that somebody cares. Endorsed by Love 101.
He knows my name.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Toussaint. Now, do you remember this poem? Rain, rain, go away, come again another day. Little Charlie or Johnny wants to play. Well, the rain wasn't listening because 1/3 of Pakistan is underwater, though receding, with over 1,000 persons dead. And in the UK, some train stations had to be closed due to flooding. And then recently, there were floods and mudslides in Sierra Leone, killing at least 8 people, while over 125,000 persons were reportedly displaced due to flooding in Central Africa. Now, these are only some of the reports of flooding across the world in the past few days. Last week, it was forecasted for Jamaica to experience heavy rains this week. So, what's with all this rain? Will it get worse? Well, to discuss these and other related issues, we have online Mr. Rohan Brown, head of the weather branch at the Met Service, and Mr. Paul Carroll, principal consultant of Technological and Environmental Management Network Limited, and also a founding member of the Jamaica Institute of Environmental Professionals. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
All right, good to have you. That is Mr. Brown. Mr. Carl, are you on with us? All right, I'm not, okay, Mr. Carl is not on as yet. Okay, so it's you so far, Mr. Brown. Welcome again, good to have you.
Pleasure to be here.
Great. Now, Mr. Brown, why is there all this rain across sections of the globe, and why is it occurring in some areas while there is drought in other areas?
Well, let's start with the atmospheric circulations. So atmospheric circulations allow for moisture to move across the atmosphere.
Mr. Brown? Okay, I understand that we have lost his signal. All right, let's go. Let's take a break and then we try to reconnect with Mr. Brown. We'll be right back.
Are you ready for another exciting show inside Alive 1 to 5 this Throwback Thursday, September 1? Join us for another time to recollect and reconnect. Stick around for Prayer Blast at 2 o'clock as we ring in the prayer bells of heaven. 2:15 inside Pieces of the Past. We continue our Parish Church Lesson Series, Part 3, looking at the St. Paul's and the St. John's Anglican Church. Then at 3 p.m., we'll bring you another episode of Proverbially Speaking, Jealousy and Envy. Woohoo! All this and more will come from Alive 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. this Throwback Thursday on the family station, Love 101.
Jamaica 60, reigniting a nation for greatness.
Are you crazy about her, but not the neon leggings and overdone makeup? Adore him, but wish he'd quit the unmatched outfits, buy new jeans, and groom his beard? You're itching to make them over, or at least encourage a few tweaks. But how do you do that without hurting their feelings? Well, this week, inside the Truly Marvelous program with host Colleen Beckles and Pastor Dylan Toussaint, they will explore My Spouse Needs a Makeover. That's to have and to hold this Thursday, September 1 at 5:30 p.m. right here on the family station, Love 101.
Okay, welcome back to the Morning Watch. We apologize for that break, and we are back on in the first watch, asking the question, what's with the rain? And I understand that we have online Mr. Paul Carroll, Principal Consultant of Technological and Environmental Management Network Limited. Mr. Carroll, are you there? Mr. Carroll, are you there? Not hearing you. Mr. Brown, are you on?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. All right. Please go ahead, Mr. Brown. I was asking, why is there all this rain across certain sections of the globe, and why is it occurring in some areas while there is drought in others?
So as I was indicating, right, the general circulation is that you have moisture moving across the globe or pockets of air. And because of that circulation, you're going to have areas where you're going to have a lot of condensation, precipitation, and rainfall. And then you're going to have other areas where there is a deficit. So that general flow allows for moisture to move from one area to another and producing precipitation. But on a local level, you're going to have areas of synoptic systems, such like a tropical wave or a trough or a storm or a hurricane, something to that effect. And these localized systems will produce rainfall in particular areas based on their movement. However, because of the movement of these systems, sometimes you're going to have an excess amount of rainfall, and then another time you're going to have a lack or a deficit. And it's just the general circulation, the general movement of systems. And as such, some areas at some point in time will have heavy and continuous rainfalls, and others will experience drought.
Yes. And a lot has been said about monsoon rains. Can you tell us what's that? Mr. Brown, is he gone again? Oh boy. Mr. Carroll, are you on?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay. Welcome, Mr. Carroll. Good to have you with us. Yes, from an environmental perspective, what are your explanations re the amount of rain which is occurring in some segments of the world and not others? And what are your concerns in this regard?
Thanks for having me on.
Yes.
From an environmental perspective, let's look at this the situation in Pakistan, which is our main focus at this point in time. We need to, yes, I agree with everything that the guest has said in terms of the movement of moisture and things like that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Carl. Mr. Carl, I don't know if you're hearing me. We're not hearing you clearly. You sound to be a little, no, you sound a little distance from the microphone. All right, go again, please. Let's try again. Go again.
Is this any better?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Carroll. We have to press on. Go ahead.
All right. You know, the global warming phenomenon is something that we can no longer trivialize. And for the global warming skeptics, we're now seeing it living out every day. Okay, let's look at, now the thing is that the effect of global warming is being exacerbated or being made worse by human activity. Okay, in addition to the use of fossil fuels. Let's look at the situation in Pakistan, for example. Now, back in the 40s, Pakistan had these magnificent coniferous forests on its western region, massive timber forests in the north, and dense mangrove forests on the southern boundary. Right? Now, yes. Look at the population growth in Pakistan. From 1947 till now, the population increased from roughly 37 million to 180 million. Right? And this has been, this has occurred along with great reduction in the natural forests of Pakistan. Right? Also made worse in about 1979, when we had about 1 million Afghan refugees that moved into camps that were carved out of previously forested areas. Right? Our research also tells us that about 39 hectares of forest are disappearing on a yearly basis.
Wow. And
so it's estimated that within 30 years, there will be probably the complete disappearance of forests from most of the areas of the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, which is one of the areas being severely impacted by this flooding.
All right.
No.
Mr. Carroll, stick a pin.
Uh-huh.
Could you stick a pin right there? We're up on a break. Hold those thoughts. We'll be right back.
Okay.
People, happiness begins at the channel. What's up, this good? From August 20 to September 4, channel rapid truth value offer 15% off all household items like sheet, sewing, pots, and more. All store island-wide. Happiness begins at the channel.
Head to a H&L Rapid True Value store close to you now.
It's who I ticket.
Hush, child. Me no want them see we.
But mommy, is the census takers?
Me not tell them my business.
But mommy, they need information about all the households to help make decisions about where to put things like clinics, stores, and new roads.
So?
Come, mommy. You count, me count, all our count.
Census Day is September 12th. Look out for the national census takers in your community and let them know you count.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. And in this, the first watch, we're asking what's with the rain? What's with the rain? And in so doing, we have online Mr. Rowan Brown, head of the weather branch at Met Service, and Mr. Paul Carroll, principal consultant of technological and environmental management Network Limited. Mr. Carroll, before the break, you were telling us about the environmental aspects in regards to these rain.
Yes, thank you. We were contextualizing this whole thing, right? In an environmental way. Now, let's look at I wanted to move next to looking at the Kabul River, which was one of the main rivers in state in Pakistan causing this damage, right?
Yes.
Normally, we're told that this river has flow rates of 33 to 460 cubic meters per second, or roughly 16,000 cubic feet per second. In this phenomenon that we're looking at here, that has fallen to like 300,000 cubic feet per second, right? Or 20 times what is normally the maximum. Okay? So, Pakistan right now is reeling from a double whammy of climate-related disasters that happened this year. The heat waves in March and April saw the temperature soar above 49 degrees centigrade. So much usually more accustomed to thinking in Fahrenheit. That's about 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Think about that. Our regular temperatures here are about in the 80s. It's 586 Fahrenheit. We're talking about 120. That is an irrefutable fact that an overheat, that with this overheating globe that we have here, the warmer atmosphere is going to hold more water, making downpours far more intense than in a cooler environment. Right? Now, our scientists tell us that for each degree of warming, the air's capacity for water vapor goes up by about 7%. For each degree, the air's capacity to hold water vapor goes up by 7%. Right? Now, let's look at Pakistan. And again, in terms of, a lot of us don't realize that outside of the polar regions, Pakistan has the largest numbers of glaciers.
Large number of what?
Yeah.
Large number of what?
Ice caps.
Okay. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Right. Okay. Now think about what this higher temperature is doing to those glaciers. Or some people say glaciers. Right?
Yes.
It is going to cause these glaciers to melt at a greater rate. And that plus the precipitation, that's what's going to give rise to these kinds of situations.
Yes.
Interesting. In the context, these floods really should come as no surprise, and we probably can look at them happening more frequently, even in other places. I mean, we see it in the U.S. right now. That there's a lot of flooding, and unfortunately, the flooding but the flooding of these places taking place outside of the catchment. So the U.S. is experiencing drought and at the same time experience flooding.
Yeah.
So it's a similar situation to what we here have in Jamaica, right? Where we get rain, but the NWC will tell you that the rain is not falling in the right place. So they still have to lock off the water or restrict water usage.
Yeah.
So
Mr.
Those are the kind of things that we have to think about. So
Interesting.
in my estimation, what this really is going to require of us is that we shift our priorities in terms of spending, shift it more to climate change resilience, environmental protection. Right now, our spending, the global spending, is really trending towards warfare and defense. That's where quite a bit of the money is going. And if you're looking at the comparison, dropping the bucket is going to environmental protection.
Yeah, a lot of the money is spent as well in going to the moon. Yeah. I'm not sure if Mr.
Thank you for going there.
Yeah. Let me just spot check. Mr. Brown, are you still on with us? Mr. Brown there? All right, you seem to be having some technical challenges. Mr.
In terms of Pakistan, right? Our reading tells us that Pakistan's investment in climate change is about 50 million, right? And this represents a cut of almost a third. But their government, by comparison, the year's defense in Pakistan is roughly about US $7 billion. And that is said to be 11% higher than the previous year, which was about 6.2 billion.
Let me ask you, Mr. Carroll, what can we do? What should and can we do as a nation? I mean, Jamaica is like a speck on the global landscape. But what can we do from our perspective and in our neck of the woods to reverse this or to stem the tide?
Well, we're not victims, right? And it is also said that because we are a small island state, the effect of global warming on us is likely to be greater, even though we contribute in a minuscule way to the greenhouse gases that are causing this global warming. Nevertheless, we have to protect ourselves, right? And I am going to put on the challenge to us that we also need to reorder our priorities in terms of how we spend the very limited resources that we have. Right? And one way that I think that we need to do it, and I have been advocating this for years, is that we need to spend much more on managing our watershed, managing and protecting our watershed. Right? Here in England, that the name of our country is Jamaica, the land of food and water.
Yes.
We have a lot of water, but we are really destroying a lot of the woodland, and the woodlands and water go hand in hand. You're not going to be able to guarantee water supply unless you make looking after the watershed, our mountainous and hilly areas, unless you make that a priority. And when we say a priority, we mean that we should be looking at spending more on things like river training, gully management, soil conservation to prevent erosion, right? And management, very, very important, management of storm water. Okay? And not to mention the obvious pollution prevention. Because you know that of all the water resources on Earth, it's probably something like about 1% that is available to us, as fresh water.
Yes.
The maximum amount of it is of the water resources is sea, is ocean. Right? So we need to protect this tiny little fraction that we have out of the water cycle that we can use. Right? So
Yes.
we need to take a very hard look at how we are using this limited funding that is available to us, because we're not
Yes.
really a rich nation, but when you are in that position, that is when you really need to refine and redefine your priorities to make sure that you are touching the right notes.
Yes.
And
Yes.
to us, the main thing that we need to do is protect our water resources. And we cannot do that unless we have everybody on board with this subject that we call watershed management.
Yes. All right. So you have been emphasizing the whole matter of the watershed. We have been destroying our woodlands. We need to spend more on river training. Anything else? Any other practical ways in which we can help to reverse or stem the tide?
Well, I think that really covers quite a bit, because watershed management is really all encompassing. Because when you save your watershed, when you protect your watershed, when you manage them properly, you're also preserving your biodiversity.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you're managing your watersheds properly, then you're also abating pollution. You're also abating not only wastewater pollution, but also solid waste pollution. Right? To me, watershed management is that big umbrella that everything fits under, if we're really doing it in a comprehensive way.
What would you say, Mr. Carroll, could be the worst case scenario going forward if we do not do what needs to be done on a global and national scale?
I would say the worst case going forward, and we're getting glimpses of it right now, is lack of water.
Lack of water? Not too much water? Eh? Not too much water?
No, we're talking water that is usable. We're not talking water everywhere, not a drop to drink. We are talking water that is of use to us and that is consistent, not flash floods.
Wow.
That won't help us.
So on one hand, we might be having more flash floods. On the other hand, you are saying that in terms of potable water, we're going to have less. Am I correct?
Well, and it's happening. You're getting glimpses of it right now.
Wow.
I don't know where you are, but where I am, we have water restriction. And if you're going to St. Elizabeth, which is our famous parish for drought and lack of water resources, where farmers down there work miracles to produce crops on very limited water supply. Even though St. Elizabeth has the biggest river, the Black River.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. But if we do not prioritize watershed management, the situation is going to get worse. It's not going to get better.
Yes. And in terms of our authorities, what if you were in their position, leadership of the country, of the region, what would you do? What would you mandate? What would you emphasize?
Well, one of the first steps that I would take would be to get some regulations with some teeth under the Watershed Protection Act. Because we do have a Watershed Protection Act.
Yes, we do.
There are no regulations under that act that regulate things like what you can grow on certain types of slopes, on certain types of soil, right? How you go about farming in terms of leaving a buffer zone, a vegetative buffer zone between your farms and water channels.
Mm-hmm.
Strong regulations in terms of prevention of disposal of waste to rivers and gullies.
And I guess our building code too, where we build our homes and...
Absolutely.
Seem to be a lot there. Well, Time is up on us. We want to thank you for joining us, Mr. Paul Carroll. We're sorry that Mr. Ruan Brown continually had connectivity issues, but we are thankful for your joining us and for enlightening us on this very, very important topic. Have a productive and safe day, Mr. Carroll.
Thank you.
Listeners, the morning watch will return in just a moment.
Talk to Jane Bank today to find out about achieving your own sweet home in 30 days. The time by Jane Bank Mortgage is
7:31.
the first sound they make is to simply let the world know they're here. And then it's our duty to help them show the world why they're here in the first place.
Give them every advantage with the Guardian Achiever, a plan that provides for their educational dreams and protects their health and life in the process. For more information, call 888-4LIFE to speak to an advisor or visit myguardiangroup.com.
Jamaica and its workforce are advancing quickly. Life-changing opportunities are arising. You need training and support. We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
Receive words of strength from the Voice of Power with Bishop Dr. Delford Davis.
The battle of seed has been declared many years ago and is still raging. I will put enmity between thee and between the woman, thy seed and her seed. A war will be on perpetually until Jesus returns. But I know who has already won the war. I know who has already won the war.
That's the Voice of Power with Bishop Dr. Delford Davis, brought to you by the Power of Faith Ministries International in Portmore. Voice of Power comes to you every Thursday at 9:30 a.m. right here on the family station, Love 101.
Speak, my Lord. Speak, my Lord. Speak, and I will answer, Lord, send me.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's now look at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. In the Observer, disabled feel dissed. Disabled feel dissed. Disabled or Disabilities Council accused of failing the community. Wow. And then big and small companies in breach, 42 before court for possession of banned plastic bags. Minister signals higher penalties and fees. In the Gleaner, in Pakistan, we're just talking about that. Fears of waterborne diseases as floods recede. And we're happy that the recession is taking place. And then streetside killing strokes new fears for Kingston's homeless. And in the Loop News, the rise, fall, and possible rise again of Jamaica's National Rail Service. And then Oliver Samuels starring in comeback comedy series, Oliver Backyard, well in the making. Interesting. So those are some of the major stories and headlines in the newspapers. Coming up next, we'll read some of the feedback from our social media question. How likely is it that you would allow a chip to be implanted in your body? Please leave a comment on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, Love 101 FM Jamaica, or WhatsApp 876-997-3125. We'll be right back.
Are you ready for another exciting show inside Alive 1 to 5 this Throwback Thursday, September 1? Join us for another time to recollect and reconnect. Stick around for Prayer Blast at 2 o'clock as we ring in the prayer bells of heaven. 2:15 inside Pieces of the Past. We continue our Parish Church Lesson Series, Part 3, looking at the St. Paul's and the St. John's Anglican Church. Then at 3 p.m., we'll bring you another episode of Proverbially Speaking, Jealousy and Envy. Woohoo! All this and more will come from Alive 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. this Throwback Thursday on the family station, Love 101.
Jamaica 60, reuniting a nation for greatness.
Are you crazy about her, but not the neon leggings and overdone makeup? Adore him, but wish he'd quit the unmatched outfits, buy new jeans, and groom his beard? You're itching to make them over, or at least encourage a few tweaks. But how do you do that without hurting their feelings? Well, this week, inside the Truly Marvelous program with host Colleen Beckles and Pastor Dylan Toussaint, they will explore My Spouse Needs a Makeover. That's to have and to hold this Thursday, September 1 at 5:30 p.m. right here on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's now join Deidre for a look at how our Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp friends answered today's question. How likely is it that you would allow a chip to be implanted in your body? Deidre?
So Cherry from Spanish Town says, inserting a chip in humans is not new. This has been happening over 10 years, but according to them, they improve. It is man trying to imitate God in every possible way. Then we have a voice note here from Sister Benjamin.
Not me. Not me. Me the born no chip. So me not put in no chip. How where them want come do? Change up goddamn thing. No chip for me.
Those are the responses we have this morning.
All right, no chip for me. All right, thank you very much to the responders and to you, Deidre, for accommodating them. All right, as we segue into the second watch. As much as visual and hearing aids are part of our lives today, implant technologies could become the norm in the future, or should we say even more so the norm in the future. They say it's inevitable. That is, the technological enhancing of human beings. But how will or should the ethics of its use be implemented and managed? But to discuss these and other related issues, we have joined us this morning Mr. Rudy Robinson, Senior Industrial Engineer and Lecturer in Technology at the Montego Bay Community College, and Mr. Richard Dennison, former IT Specialist, Senior Systems Analyst for the School of Visual Arts. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thanks for having me. Right. Good to have you both with us this morning. Let me begin with you, Mr. Dennison. What is the given rationale for making such implants? And as far as you know, how will it really work?
Well, the main push at the moment is for having an ability to aid people who are disabled. So that's really been, a major push behind this technology, the adoption of this technology. So, for example, people who have had spinal injuries, right, and they're unable to send messages from their brains to their, remote body parts. The dream is that, with some kind of brain machine interface, you'll be able to, work around the blockage, if you will, or the interrupt, and be able to send messages to parts of the body that were unable to receive them, or are not able to allow for that person to live their normal life. So that's really the main push and scope for it, and they are making some major advances now in that regard. It's early in the technology; it's still in its nascent phases, but it's easy to envision a day in which something will be implanted, and again, implanted just to be more convenient rather than having to carry something around, or to plug into anything, to have this all built into the body so that it would allow for people, again, in the main focus, to be able to deal with and cope with injuries or, deficiencies.
And you mentioned implants. So what would that look like? How big is it? How small is it? What is it made of?
Right. Well, miniaturization is the key, to getting this to be an efficient way to, again, address these problems. At the moment, typically, they are making entryways into the brain through the skull and implanting electrodes on the surface of the skull to try and read information from the brain. So normally when you walk, you send electrical signals through the nerves, that then are, sent through your nervous system to the muscles to enable, that activity to happen. And so if we are able to read those signals as they emanate from the source of the brain, then we can effectively, program equipment to then carry out those functions. So miniaturization is a must. And again, recent developments have led to new techniques for implanting them, the necessary wiring to read those signals in a way that is less intrusive. So it's just a matter of time before it becomes very effective.
And made of what? What is it that these chips will be made of?
Well, typically wires, circuitry, very thin wires. So this is stuff that is very, very. It has to be, again, very fine in order to reach the areas that need to be reached and not be an intrusion on the body or something that the body would reject. So this is really where the lead into the competition in this space is going into, is just how to miniaturize the technology, one, how to be able to remotely read the signals sent, and to be able to power it also, with minimal use of batteries or anything like that, so that it can go for a long time. You don't have to constantly be plugging in, and you can live as normal a life as possible, utilizing the technology.
Interesting stuff. Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
What would you consider to be the downside or the possible negative repercussions of such developments?
Okay, as Richard said, the upside is with improving persons with disabilities, persons who need us help, may allow you to see better, allow you to hear better, be stronger. But on the other side, the real technology, the real research is all military to produce super soldiers. If your eye is like your cell phone, you can stay 10 miles away and see into somebody's house with X-ray vision or some technology like that, right? That's a super soldier, and that's where the real push is. That's where the real development is currently taking place. It's all about the military, and there's developments going on. As Richard said, there's that interface. You interface electronics with the human brain, and you can also remotely monitor what is going on. So the things that we see on sci-fi movies, this is what is happening right now as we speak.
Right. So the downside, what do you think would some of the negatives that we need to be careful about?
Well, if you have electronics implanted into you, then you can be monitored remotely by other persons. People can stay thousands of miles away and know and watch and hear and see what you're doing. And I think that's a negative. It's invasive. It's into your private space, and inherently built into it.
All right.
Well, you could.
Anymore?
If you want me to jump in here a little bit.
Yeah,
I didn't know if I was. That's okay. Okay, sure.
We're coming to you after the break, Mr. Dennison. We're actually near to break. Any more, Mr. Robinson, before the break? We have less than a minute.
Well, there's always going to be the moral and ethical issues, especially amongst. Can you, for example, God made man perfect.
Okay, tell you what, stick a pin right there.
Yes.
We're going to come back after the break to discuss that. Listeners, we're up on a break.
Rise with the sun and face the day with some Lasco instant chocolate. Pull a pack, stir it up. Hot or cold, enjoy the chocolatey goodness any time of the day and unleash instant smiles, instant happiness.
Already 20 years the Cameron there? Hace 20 años en Jamaica? Thank you, our valued customers and industry partners. You made it possible.
Come celebrate this significant milestone with us at any of our 3 properties: Royal Decameron Club Caribbean, Montego Beach, and Cornwall Beach.
Call us today at 876-973-5600 or visit us at www.decameron.com. Let's celebrate the next 20 years together at Decameron's all-inclusive hotels and resorts.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and in this, the second half of the second watch, we are discussing the whole matter of the inevitability and ethics of becoming superhuman. And in so doing, we have online Mr. Richard Dennison, former IT specialist, senior systems analyst for the School of Visual Arts, and Mr. Rudy Robinson, senior industrial engineer and lecturer in technology at the Montego Bay Community College. Before the break, Mr. Robinson, you're telling us about some of the possible negatives of all of this technology.
Yes, we Jamaicans, we have our ethical issues. We're a very spiritual people, and we have concerns about. As far as we're concerned, God made us perfectly. We don't need any enhancements. It's only if we have defects where we would want enhancements, as Richard was saying. But it's not going to stop there. The real technology, it's military. It's about superhumans, making humans better than God made us, and that's I think the biggest negative.
Right, Mr. Dennison, you wanted to jump in?
Sure. Well, a little, nuance there. Consider if you had to travel from Kingston to Montego Bay, and you're to only use your human ability, and you had business to do, and you're in competition with somebody else who suddenly has a car. If we don't adopt technology to address these, needs, then we're going to get left behind. Think of the Amish, for example, in the United States, right? They made a solemn vow to, not incorporate technology in their lives, but as such, and again, this is a personal decision, obviously, but you'd be left behind. And there's that consequence to consider. As regards the ethics, this is an important thing to address now, because, of course, people will take advantage of technology, especially given the situation that we will be in competition with technology, because robots and automation are taking over and enhancing a lot of work. And again, in the competitive nature of how we earn a living, to not adopt it would mean that we could, pay a price, right? And think about, any technology that's come about. Just to reference the comment from Sylvia about no chip insertion, and she doesn't, want a battery and such, and she's not a robot. This is true. However, you will be competing with robots, and this is one of the arguments being made now that, there's going to be a need to enhance human ability in order to stay relevant in the workplace. So just something to consider. Of course, the ethics too is that, we may develop a situation where one, group of humans with the necessary resources will be able to enhance themselves in ways that make them more competitive over humans who cannot afford that, right? So you may have, people or certain jobs demanding workers or showing preference for workers with enhancement, again, to fill the bottom line and to increase, productivity and whatnot. So this may be a thing that no matter our opinion of it, we may not be able to avoid it for the world to continue progressing and advancing as it has to date.
Yes. I'm seeing a comment here in the form of a question. How do we know that's not already being done? For example, a visit to the dentist or doctor to do an operation. How we know that those implants aren't already being done? Mr. Dennison, you want to tackle that?
Implanting technology people without their consent.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, don't think about technology having to literally go into your body. You're being monitored through your cell phone. I mean, consider what life would be for many people if you were to take away their cell phones permanently. You know, the encroachment of technology is subtle but pervasive, right? And we don't realize it. We are, even what we're doing now, right, is technology enhanced. So, you know, the idea that we shouldn't utilize technology because God made us a certain way, maybe, too stretching the idea a little too far, right? I think God gave us our minds to be creative, and we are creatively using what's around us to do better and to, because the modern world, as we know it, would not exist. I mean, consider all the benefits of being able to go to the same doctor, right? For him to use the tools he used to, improve your health and make you better. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. So with that, but of course we have to be careful because, the same doctor could do harm. The same car you're driving could knock somebody down. To everything there's a good side and a bad side. And it's inherent upon us to emphasize the good and to, mitigate the bad. So this is just the course of development. No society in the history of man from our, beginnings to today has ever remained exactly the same and static. We've always sought to make improvements, to adapt and to adjust to the pros and the cons of what we employ to make our lives better.
Yeah. And Mr. Robinson, you want to add anything to that?
I agree with what Richard has said. However, I would argue that we already have advanced knowledge of nanobot technology, which is tiny little robots that you can put in your bloodstream. And there are those who would already argue that people may already have these nanobots in them, received through vaccinations and things like that. And these nanobots can be used to control you and have you do things which you normally would not do. And the knowledge is out there. The technology is out there. It's who controls the technology is what we have to be worried about. Not the technology itself. The technology is fine, but who controls it and what are they using it for and what's their objective and goals? That's where we need to be careful.
Yeah, the comments are coming in fast and furious. Concerns about athletes beginning to be scanned. I mean, how would we regulate, the athletes not knowing who has received implants as against others who have not? Mr. Robinson?
Well, an athlete's greatest enhancement would be something which would improve blood flow during competition. And right now that is being done mostly through chemical ways. A lot of chemicals are used to you can spike up an athlete and they'll run a race in 2 seconds faster than anybody else. And it will be very hard. You can detect the chemical traces of those chemicals in some cases, right? But for example, the muscles, you can use technology to enhance the contraction and relaxation of muscles so that they go faster. That would be harder to detect. So there are all kinds of things which can happen, which would be very hard to trace.
Yeah. I don't know if Mr. Dennis, you want to comment on that question that came in a while ago? Concern? You are muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Scanning people to see if they're enhanced. Well, I'm not aware of the technology, and again, using nanobots or anything like that. Right now, being able to confer advantage to humans. The current state or the latest development is simply just even getting the interfaces implanted to begin with. Elon Musk has a company called Neuralink, and they're rushing to do this. And they just partnered with another company called Synchron, which has actually made a major advance in this regard. So I wouldn't say we have to be afraid of that just yet. The day will come when this will be a major concern. And this is why the World Economic Forum kind of raised the issue in a recent article and is saying that, now that we see this on the horizon, we need to start talking about the ethics, putting in place, the framework and the structures to ensure that we do our best to make sure that this technology serves the betterment of mankind. And again, as I explained earlier, we do our best to mitigate, the negative sides of things. Because there's no pure technology that's all good. We're always going to face this concern and problem. It's just up to us as citizens to be active, play active roles in our countries and pressure our governments to make sure that they do right by us and, again, address these concerns.
Yes, and I'm happy you went back to the whole matter of ethics, because I want to ask you, gentlemen, if you were asked to help formulate a policy in regards to the ethical and the safety considerations of such technology, what would you include? What are the things that you would emphasize in that regard? Beginning with you, Mr. Dennison.
Right. I would say we need to emphasize, equal access to the technology once it's developed, so that we don't, again, as I alluded to earlier, have, a separate class of people enhanced who, because they can afford it, are able to enjoy this advantage vis-a-vis those who cannot. Because, of course, that's immediately going to have an effect in the society writ large. So that, for sure, is one of the top concerns. And also transparency in the work and the research, so that we know what people are doing, right? And we can supervise and regulate the activity. Yes.
Equal access and transparency. All right. Mr. Robinson, what's your take on that? What would you want to include or emphasize in that policy?
We're probably going to have to also invest equally in technology to monitor what is being done and have governing bodies which are monitoring the technologies out there to see that it performs as it says it's going to perform and doesn't go outside of that boundary. So it's a question of creating bodies to monitor what is going on technologically. Which is kind of what we do for most technologies right now. We have governing bodies out there to control what is allowed and not allowed. So it's going to be more of the same, more of that.
Anything else?
I would just say this: don't be afraid, to be open to the idea of adopting technology. We're already doing this. The one thing that struck me was how often people wear and keep in their Bluetooth headphones. When Bluetooth first came out, I used to be surprised at that, because my take was, well, use it when you need it, pull it out. And I'd see men, especially, walking around with their Bluetooth headphones in constantly, even when they were not making calls. And if you want to consider something implantable, that's, one more step from in your ears into inside your head, right? And, if you're not afraid of that, and you understand the advantages and the benefits of that, well, the rest of the technology kind of plays right into that sphere. Again, we just have to be vigilant to make sure that this thing is monitored and, transparent and regulated. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm seeing here a comment in regards to penalties. How would you, in formulating that policy, include the penalties? What type of penalties you think would suffice? Mr. Robinson?
When I used to make chips with Intel, built into the chip is the ability to disable, right? And you could disable a chip so that it couldn't function, or some of its features would not work. And you can use that capability to have penalties in technology, in implanted technology, where you disable aspects of that technology remotely, right, as penalty. So if the provider or the user goes outside of certain guidelines, you can actually do that type of thing.
So just to add to that point, that was actually a commentary made in that regard by an expert at the World Economic Forum, who said, think about it, people are taking pills. They could implant technology into the pills you take to know that you took them on time, and to know if you didn't take them, to more accurately, say, inform your medical provider as to whether you are taking your pills on time or not. But the remote access thing is a troublesome thing in the sense that, they can currently disable, say, Tesla cars remotely. or control them, right? Imagine you driving your car and some, person with ill intent steers you off the cliff or, runs you into opposing traffic. So again, with all these technologies, there's a side that is, useful to us, married to the side that, exposes us to some danger. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is, ladies and gentlemen. There's no pure technology, and we just have to do our best and work with what is. And hopefully, the best will win the day.
Well, that's a fitting note on which to end, gentlemen. Of
Richard,
course,
do you have a Tesla?
There are those,
No Tesla.
there are those who believe we're going to self-destruct if we continue all of this technology. But hey, there we go. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. Have a safe and productive day.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
And thanks for having me once again.
Thank you, listeners, for being with us. Yes. For information or get copies of this program, call our production department at 876-968-95967. This has been The Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and our guests. Please join Mr. Stokely Marshall next week as he continues to look at the issues of the day. I'm Dylan Toussaint, reminding you to be purposeful, faithful, thankful, and of course, watchful, as I hand you back to Love in the Morning with DJ Parchment.
The NHF is here for you, helping Jamaican residents pay less for medication with the NHF card. The time by the National Health Fund is
8:01. You are now invited to listen to